And for more on this, on the evidence that came out of Parliament's Ad Hoc Committee looking into allegations of corruption within the criminal justice system, we are now joined by security analyst and former Interpol ambassador Andy Mashaile to wrap up the proceedings. For us, he joins us now via our video link. Andy, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. I want us to start off here. Of course, this week during the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee, we saw Mashaile, who is the Deputy Police Minister, as well as the Acting Police Minister, being questioned by parliamentarians. And it was very interesting to see what they had to say, particularly when it comes to the PKTT. I remember vividly this week where Mashaile said that she found out on social media that the PKTT was disbanded.
Mbali, the two individuals who sat before the Ad Hoc Committee, according to my analysis and my findings, they are saying the PKTT was not supposed to have been disestablished or disbanded. And secondly, they are telling us, especially Deputy Minister Mashaile, tells us the narrative that we've been hearing from other witnesses that says the minister took it upon himself to write the letter and not consult with all of those forming part of the value chain, from the office of the president until up to the project manager. In this instance, we learned that the project manager was General Khumalo for the boots on the ground. So it tells you exactly what General Mkhwanazi was alleging, that those who are testifying now are corroborating the allegations put forward by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi.
And Andy, you know, towards the end of the week, we saw, of course, the head of IDAC, and that is Andrea Johnson, Advocate Andrea Johnson. She also then took to parliamentarians being questioned. Very interesting what came out of those proceedings, right? And particularly when it comes to her defending the decision, of course, to charge Dumisani Khumalo, and that's the head of crime intelligence, and at the same time defending the positioning from the court as well on their decision not to allow him back at work.
Mbali, there is no way in which the decision that she took was going to be changed before the members of the Ad Hoc Committee. If I were to be in her shoes, I would have maintained that straight line that says, I have a leg to stand on. And if General Khumalo feels and General Mkhwanazi feels that the process is not helpful to their investigations, General Khumalo would then be able to have that opportunity to put his side of the story before the court. It is the courts that will then decide the welfare and the well-being, as well as the ability of General Khumalo to go back to work. So I'm not surprised with that line of, or that hardline stance that she took. Anything else would have challenged the integrity as well as the legitimacy of the decision that she took with regards to the arrest of Lieutenant General Khumalo and all others that are going to be coming, as we heard it from the eagle's mouth.
At the same time, Andy, it was the issue around the leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, asking Andrea Johnson when it comes to who may be arrested. And this is now very important, right? Because of what we saw yesterday, Malusi Kigaba presenting himself, you know, before IDAC yesterday. What do you make of that development? And now seemingly that Malema may have had prior knowledge of the arrests that were about to take place.
Mbali, I said in one of our discussions, hell is going to break loose, and we are seeing the splinters of the hellfire. Mbali, we are seeing some of those who are going to have to stand before courts of law as presented by the behavior and conduct of Ntate Malusi Gigaba presenting himself before the authorities or the powers that be, for the want of a better way. Remember, Mbali, that you have the IDAC process on your left hand and you have the criminal process on the right hand, and you're going to say, what do you mean criminal process? The criminal process as per the complaint laid by General Ntantam Kwanas, those that would come from the criminality that would have been linked and connected by evidence to the case here, General Ntantam Kwanas. Also those who would be within the firing line of IDAC. Those two positions are going to juxtapose the fire for those who would be identified either in the Madanga Commission or in the criminal proceedings that emanate from the case that was laid by General Ntantam Kwanas.
And Andy, before I let you go, very interesting development also coming out from yesterday. Embattled police minister who has been placed on special leave, and that is Senzo Mchunu, handing over his electronic devices to the SAPS investigators. One would say, how do we begin to trust this evidence which has now been handed over, considering when we saw that press briefing from KZN Police Commissioner Ntantam Kwanazi taking place in July, and now only seeing those electronic devices being handed over now, one would ask, can, the possibility of the evidence been tampered with, can that be, a factor to consider?
Well, it can be a factor to consider, but I'll refer to him and say he knows what would go for him if evidence was to be tampered, and he also knows that it would further add to his woes. Mbali, let me once again use juxtaposition his experience of handing over with the experience of the IDAC investigations officer. On the one hand, the phones are being submitted for forensics, for digital forensics. On the one hand, the digital devices are stolen in a kidnapping that has been reported at the nearest police station, or the police station that he went to when they let him go after assaulting him, those who have kidnapped him. So you realize that the battle for evidence is now on the digital platform, and it's the digital platforms that would help the Madanga Commission arrive at interesting findings and recommendations and referrals to IDAC or referrals to law enforcement agencies, DPCI, to do investigations, amongst others. We will be waiting with bated breath, Mbali, to look at what comes out of the devices handed over by the minister. I know for certain that you can go into the databases as well as the servers of various social media platforms, especially when you have a court order. You would go there by Melrose Act to the offices of META, who will then be able to provide you with access to the servers.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mashaile, for your time. That's Andy Mashaile. He is a security analyst and former Interpol ambassador there, just giving us a wrap of what took place during the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee. Also there, pointing out to some of the witnesses that presented their evidence before Parliament.